Hello and welcome. My name's Angie Holden and I'm the blogger behind the Country Chic Cottage. Today we're going to talk about adding a bypass tray to your Sawgrass printer. Now the bypass tray I have, as well as the printer, is for an SG500. They do make bypass trays, they would be larger than this one, for say the SG1000. So if you have a Sawgrass printer, you can add a bypass tray to it. So you purchase the bypass tray separately and it allows you to print longer. So this SG500, the maximum print size as it comes is 8.5 by 14 inches. When I add the bypass tray, I can print 8.5 by 51 inches long. Now that means I do need to purchase paper on a roll, which I have a roll here that we're going to try. However, the bypass tray itself does not hold the roll of material. So you will need to manually cut, say, the roll of paper to whatever length you want to print and feed it through the bypass tray. However, if you are looking to print larger with your Sawgrass printer, or you might want to, use this for better material utilization. Say you have something that would fit perfectly on an 8.5 by 16 sheet of paper. However, your SG500 only prints to 14 and you're losing quite a bit of paper. This might be an option for you as well. Now with the SG500, the bypass tray doesn't add any width. So the maximum width is still 8.5 inches wide. With the SG1000, however, when you add the bypass tray, it does add width. So you can print those 13-inch wide sublimation prints once you add that bypass tray. The maximum length on both bypass trays is 51 inches. So that is the maximum length you're going to be able to print. However, 8.5 by 51 inches sounds really great to me right now. So let's take a look at the bypass tray itself. I already unboxed it, but I haven't done anything to it, so it still has kind of the packaging material and all that type of thing. So let's take all of that off. I'll show you how to attach it to the Sawgrass printer. And one of the benefits is that it is removable. So you can add it when you need it. You can remove it when you don't need it. And that way the Sawgrass printer itself doesn't take up any more space, say in your cabinet or whatever. And you can pull it out just when you need to use the bypass tray. So let's take a look at the bypass tray itself close up. In the package, you get the bypass tray itself along with a set of instructions. You do not get any long paper with the bypass tray, so you would need to order that separately. And the first thing you want to do, unbox it, take it out of the box, and then we're going to remove all of these blue tape pieces. So you will see several pieces of tape that are just used for packaging, and you'll want to locate those and remove them. That includes on the bottom. So you can see on the bottom, there is a piece that I will need to attach to this bypass tray, and it's taped to the bottom. So we'll want to remove that, take that off, and I'll unwrap the bubble wrap from that as well. And I'm going to show you how to attach that. So I'm just going to remove all of these blue pieces of tape. Just everywhere there is any tape at all, you want to take that off. Then we can start setting up the tray itself once it's completely unpackaged. Now you just flip the bypass tray over to the bottom, and this piece that we took off the bottom that was wrapped in plastic wrap, we just need to install that. So you'll see 3 holes across the bottom, and on the piece you'll see 3 tabs. The 3 tabs go in those 3 holes. So we'll just align that with those 3 tabs. And then the piece itself has a couple of clips, and there are holes in the bypass tray for those clips. So we'll just push it up until those clips hit those holes, and it is clipped into place. Now once you install this portion, it does not come off again. So we've installed it, and we can reuse the bypass tray over and over with this piece in place. So now we have the bypass tray complete, and we are ready to add that to our printer. So let's take a look at the back of the printer and how this installs. For this portion, you want your printer completely off and unplugged. I've even removed the cord for this. And then on the back of the printer itself, you have 2 gray levers here. We're going to press those in and drop this tray down. On this tray, there's a little flap here, and it has some what I would call thumb holes. So they're just kind of indentions. Put your thumbs in there and press. And this should flip down. So what this does is like control the noise when you're regularly printing. However, we are going to need a way to get our paper into this back, and this is what does it. And now we can just close this door back by pressing it, making sure the gray tabs lock again. And now you have this door here open and a place for your paper to go inside of the SG500. And now we can add the bypass tray. So the bypass tray is going to need to align a few different ways. So that piece that we put on the bypass tray will need to rest on this area. So that's where the paper feeds through. Then there is an electronic plug here, and that will need to align in the back with the plug end here. Then there are a few other pieces that you'll want to align on the tray as well. Then there are 2 buttons on the tray. So on either side, there are buttons, and you're going to want to push those down. When you push those down, and I'll just do an example here, this moves. So that's what's going to lock your bypass tray into place. So we're going to push the levers down on both sides. All right, so my buttons are down on both sides, and I'm aligning each of the elements in the back of the printer. And I'm just going to click the bypass tray into place and release these levers. And now my bypass tray is on my printer. If I ever want to remove it, say I don't want this, it takes up too much room in like my storage cabinet, you just push these buttons again and remove the tray. So it is very easy to put on and off once you have it set up. And you can close this when it's not in use and redo it just like we did before, or leave it open. But I would probably close it just to keep the noise down. So we'll just line everything up, press it in, release the gray levers. So that's all you have to do to install and uninstall the bypass tray on the SG500. Now that's the entire process for the SG500. The SG1000, I have seen videos on it, and it has another bracket that you will need to install with the screw, but it is very, very easy to install. Now all that's left for me to do with the SG500 is to plug it up. We're going to do a few changes in the printer properties to make sure that it sees the bypass tray and you're ready to print. And then we are going to try this paper and printing something very long with the SG500. So let's take a look at the printer properties first. First, you'll want to go to your printer dialog box, and I just go down to the search and do printers and then open this printers and scanners, open that up. And then you want to find your printer. So you should have Sawgrass Print Manager as well as your Sawgrass printer. Open up the printer, then click Printer Properties. Once that opens up, click over to Accessories and make sure that bypass tray is checked. It will probably automatically do it. If it does not, you want to check it at this time. So let's add some paper sizes. So I'm going to print actually a really long banner. So I'm going to right click down here on the Print Manager, and I'm going to pick Manage Page Sizes. I can add whatever size I want here. I want to add the maximum to both. So that is 51 inches by 8.5 inches, and you can type it or use the slider. I'm going to click Save As, and I'm going to say 8.5 by 51 bypass. And I'm going to click Save. That added a new paper size to my SG500. And you can do this for whatever paper size that you were going to print on. Remember, I'm using the maximum here, but you can add other sizes as well. So now I have my paper size added to Sawgrass Print Manager. Now we'll go to Print Manager, open local file, and I do have this banner if you would like to print it. So we need to pick wherever the download went. And we're going to pick polyester. I thought it'd be fun to put this on a piece of polyester fabric, perhaps. High quality. And then we're going to pick bypass tray. Then we're going to go over here to layout and pick that paper size that we just added. Then we'll go over here to jobs, and we can see that it's 8.5 by 51 exactly, but we would need to add the margin. So I will take this down just a little bit, and it will automatically resize everything. So now you can see everything is ready to print, and it is that maximum size with the margins around it, and it is mirrored, so I could press it on my polyester fabric. So everything is ready to print to that bypass tray. We'll just have to hit print and add our material to the bypass tray itself. So let's take a look at adding the material before we actually hit print. So I took my roll of paper and I measured off approximately 51 inches. I did go a little long just in case, like I didn't want to mess the whole thing up for an inch or so. And I do recommend using a paper trimmer to cut the edge. So you do want the edge to be very, very straight. Now this paper has a bright white side and like an off-white creamy side. I'm gonna print on the bright white side. That means I need to put it bright white side up in the bypass tray. So I'm just adding the paper to the tray, and the tray does have adjustable guides on both sides. So let's take a look at how to adjust those. So we've added the paper in, and on this side it has something you squeeze, and I'm gonna take the paper out in just a second. You would squeeze it to close and open those guides. So I'm gonna put the paper in. It should go under the guides on both sides. I'll squeeze and press it in so that the paper loosely fits inside, but it's going to guide it straight into the printer. And then I want to make sure that the paper's all the way down, and as you can see, the paper is just kind of hanging over. As we discussed, the Sawgrass SG500 bypass tray does not allow for you to add a paper roll to this. However, there is an extension. So back here you can lift this portion up to extend the tray a little bit. You might find the extension down or the extension up works best. I probably like extension up a little bit better. So now we have everything set with the bypass tray itself, and we set everything in Sawgrass Print Manager. Now all that's left to do is to hit print and watch it print. Wow, it worked. So here is that huge piece. So when you're first doing this, you may not want to leave the printer unattended. So as you saw, as it comes out of the printer, like it could jam up. So you might not want to leave the printer unattended, but otherwise, look what I was able to print with my SG500 and that bypass tray. So the only thing I will say is I had to kind of get used to the placement of the paper in the tray. It kept saying it wasn't loaded, so I just kept like pulling it in and out to get used to the placement. Now that I'm used to the placement, just drop it in and you're ready to go. You can change the size on the printer itself, but that didn't seem to make a difference in my case. Changing it in Sawgrass Print Manager seemed to be everything I needed to do. However, if you feel like you're getting an error and you want to change it on the printer itself, there is a setting. So you just go to menu and then tray paper settings, and then there is a printer bypass tray size option there. And you can pick custom size there and actually type in anything you would want from, of course, not exceeding the maximum. So it does have 8.5 by 51 as the max. And so you can type in any size you want there. So if you find you're getting an error and you just can't get it cleared, you can't get it to print, you might try going into that paper tray setting and making sure the paper size and type on the printer match what is in your computer so that everything matches, and that might help clear any errors. Now, what would you use this for? So as you can see, I had an idea for like a birthday banner. You could buy just polyester fabric from the craft store in a long length, and you could make a custom birthday banner. So that was one idea I thought of. The other idea I thought of is utilization of paper. Say when I'm making mugs, 2 mugs might, like say if I'm making a full wrap sublimation mug, 2 of those might fit on an 8.5 by 14 inch piece of paper, but I could put 4 and better utilize my paper size and just make the print longer. And then I could kind of, cut off the paper wherever I needed to and print that custom size so that I'm not wasting any paper. So I do think that's one huge benefit, is not wasting paper. And then if you were doing a bunch of, let's say, can koozies, and you had a bunch of small designs, printing all of those at one time might save you time as well as money with, you know, not wasting any paper and being able to print them all at once, cut them apart, press them, and be done. So I do think that's a couple of ways where the bypass tray could save you. Now, does everyone need a bypass tray? Probably not. It is a way to print larger with your SG500 or SG1000, depending on which you have and which bypass tray you purchase. However, it's probably not needed in all cases. And when you purchase this, you will need to purchase the paper roll. So I am going to link in the description below this video where to purchase the bypass tray, where to purchase the 8.5 by 11 paper roll, and where to get this happy birthday banner if you just wanted the banner itself to print. Even if you're just testing your new bypass tray, you could print a happy birthday banner. Now for me, I love that this comes off. So I like the smaller footprint of my SG500. I don't particularly like it with the bypass tray attached, but it comes off easily. You saw that. So I can take it off, I can store it somewhere else, and I can just pull it out when I need to use it. I don't need to leave it attached to my SG500 all the time, and I do really love that aspect of the bypass tray. So hopefully this helps you understand the bypass tray, what it's for, and how to use it. If it does, give us a thumbs up. If you have any questions about the bypass tray or anything we covered, drop down in the comment section, ask away. And if you haven't already, head on over to our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. We have videos just like this one every single week, and trust me, you don't want to miss any of those. So thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.